All right, welcome everyone. We're about to get started. Welcome to today's session on signature Teams rooms. This is going to be a fairly light conversation on slides. So for those that are online and watching this remotely, we're going to be having a lot more conversations around talking about the actual archetypes of Teams rooms and how the idea behind signature Teams rooms came about and the purpose of them and so forth. At the end of the session, what I'll do is I'll share with you also a recording to a recent video that we did. We did a masterclass on signature Teams rooms with our Microsoft Hive team. I'll talk about who they are in just a moment, but it's going to really help you understand what we're trying to achieve when it comes to signature Teams rooms and their purpose and so forth. For those who don't know me, I've pretty much met everyone in the room that I'm looking at, but those online, my name is Andrew Higgs. I'm the partner solutions lead for Teams rooms across Asia. And my role is to make sure that you guys have partner capability and feel confident that you know what we're talking about when it's selling Teams rooms and deploying Teams rooms, both with our device partner ecosystem, so OEM partners. I help skill up the partners there, plus also our systems integrators in region as well, making sure that they've got the relevant knowledge as well and helping you guys get your certifications and so forth. So I'm joined, as always, with my co-pilot. I've mentioned co-pilot now. Kayla Wilson from CollabTech.
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm Kayla from CollabTech. I think I know a lot of you as well, or most of you. I work with Teams rooms. We do a lot of services and work with Microsoft. Our focus is really on whatever services there are around Teams rooms, back-end management, deployment, and whatever else it is that needs to get done for whatever the solution is. And signature Teams rooms are a pretty exciting new part of that because it's going to give us sort of a framework to deliver best in class rooms for clients.
We're going to make the session as interactive as possible. So if you've got questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand. We'll answer them along the way. Same thing with those online as well. We are monitoring the chat. All right. So Microsoft, we refer to meeting rooms as different archetypes. And about 12 to 18 months ago, we announced a whole bunch of standard archetypes when we're talking about meeting rooms. And we now consider these in the traditional sense as what you're probably familiar with focus, small, medium, large, and extra large meeting spaces. What's not on there is like training and auditoriums and multi-purpose rooms and so forth. But obviously our solutions can obviously be deployed in those meeting spaces as well. And then you've got your interactive spaces, which are more of your huddle spaces. You might use things like Surface hubs in those spaces where you're going to be standing in front of a device, or we've got a number of Teams rooms board solutions on Showcase downstairs that integrate. And those devices are more interactive, and that's why they go into these more open plan spaces and so forth. And then finally, we have our signature Teams rooms. Now, signature Teams rooms primarily have a different vision. They're not a room that's going to replace every room on market. They're not going to have, not every single organization is just going to go, now scrap all the Teams rooms that we've got now, and we're going to change the layouts and put in signature rooms. These are rooms that where it's valid, where it's this purpose, and where it's warranted. Yeah, you might have one of these signature rooms deployed on a meeting room floor. We're seeing more of these rooms pop up, and you're probably wondering, okay, what is the difference between like the small room here and the small room here? They look very, very similar, and the purpose of today's session is to walk you through the technology that is being used, the configuration of those rooms, the layout of the rooms, the purpose and the way those rooms are being used, and just to highlight why signature rooms, and to be fair, we used to call these enhanced meeting rooms, I think they were called at one point.
Yeah.
Signature rooms just happens to be what they call it.
It's been an iterative growth, because the first time I experienced this type of design was actually in Microsoft's offices in Hong Kong like 6 years ago. And this was even before Teams. This is when Teams rooms were just hitting. It was an optimized design, which then I saw replicated across multiple Microsoft offices because it was an internal resource for Microsoft Spaces. It was the Hive that designed it. Because I remember thinking, well, this is the coolest room I've ever trained in. And it was similar to some of these. It's changed a little bit, similar to some of those interactive spaces. And it's been something that's been an internal resource. And I'm sure Higgsy will enhance this. That's been growing and growing and growing. And now it's being turned external.
Absolutely. The idea behind this, right, was during the pandemic, what happened was we needed a strategy for meeting spaces for them to be inclusive. What we identified was that everyone coming back into the office, they've spent so much time of like working from home, and everyone could see each other in meetings, and everyone was virtual. Everyone was like working from home remotely, and everyone had a place in the meeting. They could be seen, they could be heard. There was order, and all of a sudden, when you came back into the office, those meeting rooms weren't providing that same rich, inclusive feeling. The people weren't getting engaged, and for many, they're having this commute regret. They come into the office, they try and use a meeting room, and they didn't have this. It didn't have the same impact. They didn't feel like the people that they were communicating with, that were working from home, that they were as engaged as much as those who are in the room. So we came up with this concept, and we have this place in Washington Redmond called the Hive, and the Hive is basically an R&D center where we actually build meeting rooms and play around with different furniture types and different lighting and sound and materials in those meeting spaces, and test Teams room solutions and seeing how they operate inside of those meeting spaces. We're actually doing a lot of work around testing camera field of views and testing spatial audio and seeing how that operates inside of rooms, and what type of materials can actually cause harm for spatial audio to work, for example. And then that's where we started experimenting with layouts like front row. It's a layout. It's nothing more than a layout. It's just a layout option on your Teams Rooms device. And what this meant was that we could start playing around these configurations. And we recently ran a masterclass, and I, for one, have always been a big fan of LED displays. I love like the large walls and 105-inch displays from like Combox that we've got on show in the room down the hall. In fact, I encourage you, after our session today, have a look at room. We're on 3.3 right now. 3.5 is just a little bit further down. Generation B team's already looked at it. It's really cool. It's a signature Teams room, like you can see right here at the end of that room that's been set up. And so signature Teams rooms, again, it's not just about Teams rooms devices. It's about setting up the room from an AV point of view to be the most immersive and inclusive experience possible. So I'm going to pick on this room actually here, the medium room, because it's got this semicircular desk, and it's like, okay, this kind of room, I'm feeling like I'm getting flashbacks now of like Cisco telepresence rooms or those poly real presence immersive rooms where they had like the giant 3 panels and like the 2 rows of seating that was tiered.
Yeah, the tiered seating, yeah.
And it cost like $250,000, and it was just like this monstrous thing. But now we're kind of like coming back to that, but we're taking it to the next level. We're taking it to the next level because what happens is, and this is something that it sounds silly when we talk about it, but when you actually go through and sit down and have a meeting in one of these meeting spaces, you're like, holy crap, this is awesome. This is like, I'm looking across from people, and I'm looking, side by side with my peers, but it doesn't feel like that you're just sitting there looking at a screen. What we're actually trying to achieve here with the placement of the camera, so the placement of the camera in the room is at high level with those sitting at the table. Now, the actual placement of the camera can be in one of 2 places, for example. In this picture here, we've got it mounted on a stand by a company called Heckler. So the Heckler stand, this Jabra Panicast 50 in this instance, is positioned on the stand at eye level with everyone, but is in actually closer to the people sitting at the desk, but with the display far enough away where it doesn't overlap. That doesn't obstruct your view with this front of room display. so that when your eye gaze, when you're looking at the display, you're looking across the actual cameras, and it makes it feel like it's more natural for those who are remote. So
It feels like you're looking at each other, which is something that I think we struggle with in a lot of Teams rooms conversations, and it actually even happens at home in Teams calls when people have their camera positioned at a weird thing, but they look at the screen and then you're looking at the side of their head, and
in the meeting room, so
yeah,
just like I'm looking at you now. So what we're trying to achieve is that same familiarity with people appearing as if they are in the room. So we've spoken about the desk, and we've got the there's a bunch of vendors that are creating these desks to enable these spaces, such as Steelcase.
Yes.
Steelcase, we've got the Ocular desk. We've also got the Combox team. We're working with some vendors down in room 3.5, and have a look at theirs. And they've even got things like, modesty filters, the actual cover at the front of the desk for those, ladies sitting wearing skirts and whatnot, and making sure that these are designed for the best possible experience. Now, let's talk about the front of room display. So we've got a camera, it's on a stand. What about if we go with a projector? Now, like I said, I've always been one that's like, yeah, why would we use projectors in 2023? It seems crazy.
Although they have gotten a lot better.
They have gotten a lot better. And the Hive team actually just, made me realize that, when you're building a signature Teams room, when you've got the appropriate lighting and the appropriate control of the actual elements in the room, and using these new laser LED projectors and so forth.
That have up to 1,000 nits. That Epson has 1,000 nits brightness, which is about as good as you can get on a screen as well.
Epson have a short throw projector that they've got on display downstairs, which does 21:9 aspect ratio, and is set up to provide the best possible experience and the highest brightness and contrast with Teams meetings in the front row.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if you've got a LED wall in front of you, providing that you've got the right backing display. So you're not just projecting onto a white wall, you're projecting onto a fabric that is actually controlling the light absorption of for that projector. So it's actually giving you the best possible image because of the actual surface you're projecting onto. So yeah, the lighting control on projectors is so much better with the right surfaces that you're projecting to, and
surface
and and makes deploying signature Teams rooms more affordable for customers. And so there is
because an LED screen of that size
it's quite expensive. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's about $100,000 actually.
So if you went down with Combox, so Combox have got a 105-inch display, 21:9 aspect ratio. Again, I'm talking about 21:9 aspect ratio because of that real estate. It's the ultra wide display. And when you're using front row, if you've seen the earlier images in the earlier sessions I had, it's going to have components on the left and right hand side, content in the middle, nice and big, and a nice long place for a gallery across the bottom there. And with our recent iteration of with front row, we've now got video segmentation, removing the backgrounds of people, having them all at the same height, so they're all now the same size across the gallery. You don't have someone sitting there like this big, like the actual camera view is that big. We're actually getting them expanded and nice and big, so they're filling up all the heads at the right size, and a grey background for everyone. So it looks as if they are sitting like across the.
It's worth noting that the premium Teams rooms experience has always been 21:9 anyway. It's just we were using 2 monitors most of the time, but like the actual default scale for it is 21:9. I don't know, anyone that's deployed like custom backgrounds knows it has to be a 21:9 image, and it just shows you half on one screen or 2 on the two. So it is actually moving to this single big display is not completely new, although it's better. It is that double screen experience, removing that the border or the divider, I should say.
So this shows you a couple of images that we've got from the Hive. You can see that medium-sized room at the top there. Even the extra large spaces, Crestron have on display Sightline. Sightline is one of the cool things that you can do with multiple cameras in a room of this size. Now, I'm not saying that Crestron are the only ones doing this. Any multi-camera solution could effectively provide the same solution, same result here. But with their Sightline, you're having multiple cameras mounted on the walls around the room, or on the ceiling, or wherever they are. It means that if I'm sitting on the far left side, whenever I'm speaking, it's going to give me a front-on shot because it's a camera mounted on this side that's taking my focus. If I'm talking on this side of the room, on the far right-hand side of the room, for those who can't see me, I'm talking, the camera on the left-hand side of the room will obviously pick up my face rather than any other camera because it's looking for me front on. Again, that's going to be able to give the remote participants the best possible experience, whilst also the same thing as we do with the front of room displays, making sure that we've got front row enabled and giving that really rich immersive experience. Then you work down into the smaller room. So you've got your guitar pick style desk here, and also your semicircular desk mount coming out from the wall. Now, a lot of these images, I'm just going to stress this because I get this question a lot, is like I'm seeing lots of Jabra Panicast 50s. The reason why Jabra Panicast 50s are in a lot of these early marketing photos is because they worked with us to actually develop the initial layout and fit out of Signature Teams rooms. They are not the only solution. HP Poly have an E70 camera, for example, that are able to provide the same capability with a little bit more narrow field of view. The HP's E70 camera is 120-degree field of view, so you wouldn't necessarily have it mounted to the stand like you've got on this one, but you could mount it underneath the display and still capture everyone sitting around that semicircular desk. So it's not just Jabra Panicast 50 that are going to be able to provide this. There are other device vendors out there as well. Yealink have a UVC 86 camera that also has similar capabilities as well. Logitech have got their Rally Bar, which you can also mount on the wall as well, and with 120-degree field of view. There is more than just one solution than what you see on the screen here, and that's one of the most important things I want to stress, is that you're not just limited to a set portfolio of devices that can provide these capabilities. What it is all about is making sure that the furniture is right, that people are using a large format display at the front of the room. Doesn't have to be 21 by 9. I know I've been talking a lot about 21 by 9. It can be two 16 by 9 front of room displays, and you can still achieve the same thing with front row. All you miss is having that bezel in the middle. You don't have that seamless, gallery across the bottom, but you've got two displays to work with, and you've got more screen real estate. So,
and again, cost effective because
screen deployment.
Absolutely. So
you'll see here we've still got single
room deployments. All we do is we optimize front row to disable one of the components on the left and right hand side. So what we had when we first launched front row was you had raised hands, chat, and you had this tiny little box for content and 4 people across the bottom, and it wasn't the best experience. So we went, okay, how about we get rid of raised hands? You can turn it on if you want, but let's maximize the real estate for content, still have meeting chat and the gallery across the bottom. So we made some little slight adjustments to optimize it for a 16 by 90 ratio, aspect ratio displays. The great thing about this is when you're thinking about the experience, it comes, like I said, it comes back down to not just the technology that you put, but also the front of room displays. It comes down to the furniture on the table and how those rooms are going to be used. Again, if you build these rooms and the people working from home don't feel like that they're present in the meeting, or if the people in the room don't feel like the people that are remote are actually being engaged, then you haven't achieved what we want to achieve here. We want to make sure that there is that familiar feel that you can be present in a meeting without actually having to be in the meeting room. So again, you're not going to have these in every single meeting spaces. These are just going to be in select rooms in customers' organizations where they'll want to have a look and leverage this. You can't have this style of room in every single meeting.
It doesn't fit a lot of meeting scenarios. It's not as required in certain spaces. But when there's a need for that true hybrid experience, and when it's a certain level of stakeholder, it's a certain level of visibility in the organization, I feel like there's a real strong place for this as a showpiece. The experience, and I don't mean showpiece just because it looks cool. I mean for the experience of people that are in that space. I had an IT manager say to me a few weeks ago that the meeting rooms are the face of IT for this organization. And so he prioritized meeting rooms over almost any other IT functionality because he said, this is how they see our performance. The room is where we're on show all the time. So it's so vital to him that those rooms not only look and work constantly, but that the user experience is always seamless. And he had a super focus on that. And he was willing to spend quite a lot to create that experience because, as he said, this is how his team's performance and his part of the organization is consumed by the larger group, and so they have to be as good as possible here because this is where we're constantly on display.
This isn't the only archetype. This is highlighting just the media space. Is probably the most popular one that we're starting to see more. But we're seeing these spawn a lot. And not only the US, but my colleague in India for the last 6 months has done 19 ribbon cuttings of signature teams rooms, and they go all out in India. They do like full ribbon ceremony, and they cut the cake and everything like that. And so
we don't do a lot of cake cutting.
I'd love to do it. I'll come down and cut cake and cut ribbons. I'm all for it. Slide. So let's just quickly talk about again what's going into these meeting spaces. Now, the AV technology stack that's on the screen here is just one of the rooms at Microsoft that I'm showcasing here. Again, it's not the technology that's going to be for every single room. I've had many device vendors say to me, yeah, but what about our camera? It's like, yes, your camera will work. But in this particular example, I'm using this camera for this example.
You managed to hit a fair few OEMs in a single room, though.
Yeah.
You're spreading yourselves out.
Next tab, we've got the Nova ThinkSmart Core.
You got a Crestron controller.
We're trying to keep
You got an Epson projector. We're spreading out. There's even a Surface Hub, so timer. Yeah. Run your mouse off the screen, and it would stop.
Yeah, so there's multiple mounting options. Again, the heckler stand is another piece of material that wasn't necessarily needed, but for the Jabra Panicast, having that camera closer to the people sitting at the table with that ultra wide 180-degree field of view, with the projector mounted on top of it, it made sense. Again, if you don't need that camera, if you've got a E70 or Rally bar, you don't need this piece. You would mount the camera underneath the front of room display and still use that for your short throw projector. In this particular room, it's even got a Surface Hub mounted on the far right wall there as well. So that can also still be used as another way to interact with your colleagues in person. You can, with coordinated meeting join, you can have a Surface Hub in the room, and it's like, we're going to get up from the table and go interact with the hub. So you move over there and start interacting with that, and change the camera over to the hub. Then you move back to the table, so you can get a bit more flexibility. So, as a partner, what are the type of things that you're going to be talking about with your customer? Well, obviously, budget, number of rooms, how many rooms do they want to consider investing in for signature teams rooms, for example? Do they have the right space and size? I showed you there's a couple of layouts that you can use signature teams rooms in. Again, signature teams rooms is more about, it's not just about the technology in the room, it's everything from the experience all the way through, something that you'd have to see to believe. Please go check out room 3.5 after this session down the hall. Yes,
I think these meeting behaviors are super important, because if you're recommending a Teams room in a room where it's not needed for this hybrid experience, then you're pitching the wrong product. So understanding the client requirements, what that room's going to be used for, when it's going to be used, how often, this just helps you. This is just actually being a professional consultative selling partner, and making sure that you understand all the needs of your client and you deliver the solution that solves the vast majority of those.
The last thing I'll say is when this is a opportunity for you to really help the customers showcase to your customers how you think differently. You as a partner can bring innovation and show up differently. I mean, I've been working with a lot of partners across ANZ and seeing the different types of rooms that they're deploying, and so many of them are still traditional rooms, which I totally get, because that's what majority of us know.
And it's also what the market asks for and thinks they want. Now, they may be wrong in some cases, but it is what the general consensus. We have a boardroom, we need a camera in it.
So my advice as partners is to consider building one of these in your office. Bring your customers through and have them experience what it's like. It's just one of the things that you need to see to believe in experience. And when customers come in, they just go, oh, wow, this is really innovative. I can see how this is adding value. I can see how immersive and more inclusive these meeting experiences are. And I really encourage partners to build these in their offices. Just start off with one in head office or one in a remote office in your region, and just see how it goes. You don't have to do the banana-shaped desk or anything like that. That'd be awesome if you did. You can start small. Start with a small signature Teams room with using a wide field of view camera and front rows that default layout, using the right furniture so that everyone has a good seat at the table, mounting the camera at eye level, and optimizing the space for those that are in the room as well as those remote. I'll conclude that, but throw it to the audience for any questions, both online and in the room. I am monitoring the chat if anyone is wanted to ask a question online. Any questions in the room about signature rooms? Yeah.
Have you got any data on chat and the raise hand feature? How much actual usage does it get per meeting around the world? Right, we're deploying everywhere.
Great question. How much data do we have on the usage of raised hands and chat in meetings on group display? Good question. So in order to enable that feature, we launched it with front row. We got so much feedback that we had to bring chat to traditional display layouts as well. So if you've got just the gallery up on the screen, we got so much feedback asking to have chat on just the gallery as well. So not having to switch on front row, you can just turn on chat. Chat on the front of room display is probably one of the most requested features that we've had for what is shown on the front of room display, because of how important that parallel conversation is. So just like we're meeting right now, we've got people in the room. Presentation isn't on a Teams room at the moment. We're using a laptop. But if this was a Teams room, I would have front of room chat up on the display with my presentation, so that the remote audience could be asking questions and I can be answering those questions live. I'm not having to go back to my laptop, read the questions out, and then we've got someone typing, which is great.
And equity of experience as well. The people in the room need the same ability to interact as those that are not. Now, there's solutions for that with companion devices and using your phone as an option, but it's so inclusive and so easy when that chat is available on the screen.
The other thing is, I for one, I love talking. Everyone knows I love talking. I'll talk your ear off. But there are definitely a lot of people that are a bit more reserved, a bit more quiet, and so in meetings, they might have a question to ask, but they may not have the confidence to just necessarily, put up their hand and speak freely. We had a session earlier where I put someone on the spot, gave them the microphone and said, here, ask your question. And thinking back to it now, I'm just like, probably not the best thing I could have done. But instead, there are people that are a bit more reserved and want to ask their questions in chat. And so
there's cultural differences too. I've worked in Asia for the last 10 years and they won't ask questions unless they have the chat option. Otherwise you won't get a question. And that's in many Asian countries. That's the way it's going to work.
So what better way than to have front of room chat on the screen? People can ask questions and feel like they're included in meetings rather than having to come off mute and feel nervous or anything like that. So I think it's really, really impactful. You asked about the numbers. I don't have the numbers for you, but the numbers must have been big enough for us to actually introduce chat to just things like gallery rather than just having it included as part of front row. We do have a question online from David. Is there a recommendation screen size to viewing distance ratio regarding the chat. Oh, reading the chat. Okay, so the recommended aspect ratio for having chat on the front of room display. Okay, so there's a couple of things that when we're thinking about front row, there's a couple of things you got to do. On a Windows MTR, your screen resolution has to be 1080p, and it also the scaling also has to be 100%. When we first launched front row, we had people with scaling of 150, and everything without skewed was like content was like this big, people's faces were like this big, or vice versa, and it was out of spec. So the Windows resolution has to be scaling 100%, and the actual resolution has to be 1080p. You're probably going, hang on a sec, all displays 4K. Yes, they are 4K displays, but the output of Teams from a video quality point of view and content is always going to be 1080.
And also worth mentioning, the majority of the hardware that we're using can't support dual 4K outputs. It can only support 4K on a single display. So even it will output 4K to a single display. It will never, almost none of them will never to two displays. So you need.
They try.
So you need to make sure that's a very common troubleshooting thing. Is that hey, the second display doesn't work? Well, it does. We've just got to switch everything to 1080p.
So question about recommended? Yeah, absolutely. 21:9 display, absolutely, because you've got the most screen real estate for video and content, and also having chat to the side. But not everyone can afford a 21:9 display.
It doesn't support it.
Or the elevator doesn't fit it. Yeah. Try getting a 21:9 format.
Just try getting an 85-inch Surface. Yeah, try getting an 80. The 85-inch Surface Hub can be a total nightmare for installation in a lot of places. It's very tough. Yeah. Oh, I did a lot of installs in Europe, and in Europe, you literally just got to pull windows out and crane it up. There is no way you're getting it through the building.
Absolutely. So if you're going to have a single display, I recommend a single big display, 85-inch would be great on the wall. Nice and big, chat to fit and content and the gallery. If you were going for two front of room displays, yeah, usually I find 2 65 inches side by side it's been pretty good. Some people go 77, but the wall has to be quite.
It's a very big wall.
It has to be a pretty big wall. This is a 65,
I think. Yeah, that's 65.
Like 70.
I don't think so.
But yeah, having two of those side by side, that's a pretty big wall.
Yeah, yeah.
So 65 is about the right point, having two of those side by side. But if you can fit it, yeah, a 105-inch 21:9 display is awesome. Combox is our preferred vendor in Australia and New Zealand. There are others out there. Jupiter also make their panorama display is absolutely fantastic. It's very popular in EMEA and North America. And I think there's also a couple of others working on displays at the moment as well. I think Abacore is working on one, as well as also ViewSonic. Pretty sure.
Is there any reason Combox is the preferred for a particular
market saturation? And they were one of the first markets in our region with it. They've just got a great solution that they've been working with a lot of the device vendors as well. So
they're really working with all the other OEMs
that had displays. You'll notice that a lot of them are using Combox because of the relationship that they've built. So it might be different in Asia. So if we went to Infocom in Asia, you'll see different solutions being showcased. So it's just what the device vendors have been, who they've been working with in region. So it doesn't have to be Combox to be fair. So yeah, any other questions? Okay, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll put a wrap there, and yeah, I appreciate everyone coming along and attending. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot.